write down a little bit about my journey. I'm just going to read it because I do get nervous speaking in front of people, but I do want to share what God has done for me in my life. My name is Tara Weddle. I was born 6 weeks early in 1974 in Silver Springs, Maryland. The doctors told my mother I wouldn't make it through the night. God had other plans for me right from the start. I was 1 year old when my mother packed me and my sister up to escape my alcoholic father's adulterous and abusive ways. Not long after that, my mother remarried a wonderful, godly man, the man I called Dad from there on out. He and my mother raised us in the Seventh-day Adventist religion. We believed in God, the Father, and the Bible. I was even baptized at age 12. But the teachings were more hellfire and brimstone, and I basically grew up fearing God. From an early stage of life, I remember feeling different. I had already developed abandonment issues from my mother and father's divorce. I always felt awkward, ugly, and left out. I was diagnosed with ADD in the 4th grade, and the doctors were questioning other mental health disorders. I never really felt normal like the other kids. I became very insecure and started questioning every part of my being. Then one day when I was 16 years old, I was introduced to alcohol. I drank the Jack Daniels straight from the bottle and just kept drinking. I didn't realize at the time, but I had officially opened the door to the devil that day. Suddenly I felt fearless, invigorated. I felt 4 foot tall and bulletproof. That feeling did not last long. I had blacked out, and the next thing I remember is waking up on my parents' front porch steps, my mother dragging me in the house, getting me to the bathroom, and holding my hair back as I puked. That was the beginning of my cycle of years and years of abusing alcohol and drugs. Not long after that, I started using cocaine and LSD, anything I could get my hands on. My parents were desperate to save me and get me to turn from my sinful ways, so they sent me to a 30-day rehab center. I met a guy there, and 5 days after I got out of the treatment center, I relapsed. By the time I was 21 years old, I had 2 DUIs, lost my driver's license, had spent a little time in jail. Yet the party continued. I didn't want to feel or face that deep down fear, pain, and insecurity, so I ignored it and continued to self-medicate. My addictions had overcome me and consumed me. I had tried on many occasions to get sober during those years. I moved to a new state, bought my first house, started a successful cabinet business with my father. I thought at that time I had life figured out, but it wasn't long before my habit of drinking led me back to the hard drugs. Back were the people, places, and things. My boyfriend at the time was charged with attempted murder. Only by the grace of God did I manage to not be associated with that crime. I lost everything. Back to rehab I went in 2009 at the age of 36. I spent 90 days at the facility. By this time, the words of AA are ringing true. Jails, institutions, or death are the end result of living in addiction and turning away from God. Within months of the 90-day rehab center stay, I was back at it. This time, doing more drugs in ways I never imagined. My life at this point was a total wreck. Remember now that I knew God, but I feared Him, and the life that I thought went with living godly. By this time, the drugs and alcohol stopped working. I had found myself back to where I started feeling empty, insecure, abandoned, and alone. I was isolating just me and my drugs. It was around this dark time that I started crying out to God for help.
Go on, man.
You're good, Bill.
Did you need the help?
I began to pray and ask God to release me of my addictions. In 2016, at 42 years old, I was arrested and charged with felony drug possession. Today, I can honestly say that God answered my prayers that night. I spent 4.5 months in the county jail. I was looking at prison time for my charges. I continued praying and began studying the Bible with my bunkmate. Sadly, I just recently learned that my bunkie lost her battle to drugs about a month ago. She overdosed and passed away. My lawyer arranged for me to get into a drug court program rather than going to prison. God had His hand in that opportunity without doubt. I was released from jail in November of 2016. I backslid a couple times, but with God's help, I picked myself up and started over again. I started working the 12-step program, attending church regularly, got a sponsor, started participating in local Celebrate Recovery meetings. I started turning to God with all my hang-ups, started and continue today to talk to Him like He's my best friend. I realize I don't have to fear Him any longer. He's a loving, gracious, giving God. Looking back on my high-risk life with a clear head now, I see so many illustrations of God's love and protection He blessed me with throughout my life. He's been there all along, from the day I was born with no chance of survival till now. All along, I just needed to surrender to him and accept his love. Today, I'm 20 months clean and sober, free of drugs and alcohol. I rededicated my life by getting baptized on June 10th, 2018. I'm finally turning over my will and my life over to the care of God. We are all children of God, no matter what our past say about us. Rely on him for everything. He will show up and come through for you. So I wrote down one of my favorite Bible verses. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans to prosper you and not to harm you. Plans to give you hope in the future. Jeremiah 29:11. Thank you for letting me share.